What I'm about to tell you happened a while back when I was around 13 or 14 years old. Now I'm 18. I had just made myself a Facebook account. I had a huge crush on this guy who used to be my neighbor and had just moved out of my street. I was super sad that I couldn't see him again until a beautiful surprise one night, opening my Facebook account with a friend request from him. My heart was racing and I was ecstatic. We started talking a bit, but nothing really interesting or attention-seeking for me to develop. But one night, we started a regular conversation as we usually would, and then it got a little scary. All of a sudden, he started claiming he wasn't my crush, that he had hacked his account and knows a lot about me. He knew my entire name, which wasn't written on my Facebook profile. I had put in a weird half-cut version of it. It wasn't easy to guess what would be the complete one. I had spoken to my crush about how we used to be neighbors and how he moved out of the name of my street. Now, this creep began threatening me on how he would come get me at my house because I was young and beautiful and his wife is getting old and wasn't satisfying his young blood. As a 13 to 14-year-old, I was completely freaked out, shaking on my desk chair, staring at the conversation. At one point, I thought maybe my crush was just messing with me, as he did have this low-key weird personality. I asked him, and he sent me a picture of himself that was clearly taken within seconds, as it was blurry, nasty quality. On the picture, an ugly, old, wrinkly, 40 to 50-year-old skinny man looking like he had been taking crack. I was going out of my mind, panicking. My mom had warned me previously on how I shouldn't be making a social media account at this age, but stubborn me did not listen. Now I was scared. I didn't want to tell my mother because I knew she'd be dead mad at me. It was around 1 a.m. at night, and I did not know what to do. I ended up just blocking my crush's account and going to bed, trying to move on and telling myself that he probably just was trying to scare me off. I was wrong. About an hour later, I received a phone call on my cell phone from an unknown number. I picked up, and it was the man. "I told you I knew a lot about you, baby. Let's talk." I hung up. At this point, I was just so done with it. Full panic attack. I woke up my mother and told her everything. She asked me to print out the conversation, and I did, and told me she'd take care of it when the morning came. The next day I went to school, and my mom was working from home that day. When I came back that evening, my mother told me that this creep rang on the door around lunchtime, insisting a couple of times on the bell and knocking through my window. My mother called the police immediately. She took the plate number on his van because it was sitting in front of our house while he was trying so hard to get an answer from all his knocking and ringing. It ended up to be a wanted sex offender that was charged with multiple infractions, including his creeping, trying to get to minors. To this day, I still don't have a Facebook and keep my social media extremely low-key. You never know what creep can be behind the other screen. I was 19 years old at the time this happened, single, attending college at a university in my hometown. I still lived at home. I had friends, but I was romantically lonely, so I decided to download OkCupid and give it a whirl. I had friends who had used the app with moderate success. I considered myself streetwise, and I knew I could always deactivate it if anything creepy happened. I didn't choose a username that could directly lead to finding me or my social media, and I didn't link up a Tinder account. I didn't list anything overly personal in my profile. The usual, I like hiking, let's get to know each other, blah blah blah. Things went mostly fine. I got pervy messages, nothing too extreme. I conversed pleasantly with some men and went on dates. I actually felt pretty safe. Then one day, I logged into my Facebook and had a chat request. He told me his name was Ryan, and he was a college-age kid attending school at my university, looking for friends. Now keep in mind, I had also been in a group on Facebook about finding friends on campus because I often felt alienated there. I thought this was a man from the group, so my messages were very friendly and try to get to know each other type chats. The conversation was fine at first, but I thought it was odd that he didn't have a profile picture. He kept begging me for more pictures of myself, but he kinda never would respond to when I asked for pictures of him. He would talk about how ugly he was, and how pretty girls never liked hideous guys. I tried to be nice, but it started bothering me. Then, the messages started getting bizarre. He kept asking me where I was going to be in class, or what class I was going to go to the next day. I didn't respond. They started getting more and more frequent and hysterical. I'm talking 20 to 30 a day, begging me to respond. Then finally, in terrible punctuation, he said, "I see you every day, sitting in the Mac lab in the library. You are so cute. Please talk to me." My blood ran cold. He sent me a picture of himself, and I recognized him as a man who had harassed me on OkCupid, and who I eventually blocked. He was probably at least 20 years older than me, balding, with extremely yellow teeth. I'm not trying to judge someone on their appearance, but something in his eyes was wild, and it just didn't sit right with me. I'm not sure if I'm describing this right, but his eyes were just like black pits. He really creeped me out. Somehow, he had found my personal Facebook from OkCupid, and I'm not even sure how, but he also knew I had studied at X Library in the Mac lab, and made it clear he had been watching me for quite some time. There was no way he would have known that unless he had actively and physically been stalking me. I had never seen him on campus and never saw him again. I blocked him instantly from Facebook, and always checked behind my back when I was walking on campus at night. For a while, I worried he was still stalking me at the library, so I changed the locations I studied at. It was all very nerve-wracking. For context, I'm a 20-year-old girl, and I met my stalker, let's call him Luke, at my friend's birthday party, which he wasn't actually invited to, that I later found out. He seemed nice enough, so we started talking, and I thought it was clear to him that we were just friends. We weren't flirting or anything like that, only talking about the party and things like that, but then he started putting his fingers in the holes of my jeans and trying to rub my legs. I pushed him away, but continued talking to him. At the end of the night, he asked me for my Snapchat username, which I gave him, and within seconds of me rounding the corner from the house, he added me. His profile looked like it had just been created with no Bitmoji, and his score was about 5. I added him back, and he started messaging me straight away, asking if I was home already, and even worse, asking if I would turn on my Snap map. This was a huge red flag, so I called him out on it, and he just read my messages without replying, so I blocked him. And I thought that would be the end of it, but that night, at about 2 a.m., I was finally ready for bed when I started getting a call from a no-caller ID. I answered without speaking, and I just heard a person on the other end mash the dial pad to annoy me, so I hung up and they just kept going. I switched my phone to airplane mode and finally fell asleep. When I woke up in the morning, I had 70 missed calls. It really freaked me out, but I pushed the calls out of my head and tried to go on with my day. But all throughout the day, I kept getting no caller ID calls. When I got home from work, my apartment was completely trashed, so I called the cops and they took a statement and asked my friend who had the party to be a witness that we met. But that's when I found out that no one even knew him. He came seemingly just to talk to me. I still have no idea how long he's been following me or anything like that, but the police just said there isn't really much they can do without his full name. The best I could give them was a description, and that's the last I heard about it. I haven't had prank calls or anything that was suspicious since that day with the police, so I'm thankful it's all stopped, but I'm still terrified something will happen.